that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Never done by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today for you, I have Book 8 in the new Jedi Order series, which is a 19-book epic. The second part of the duology by Greg Keyes, Edge of Victory 2, Rebirth, with again worse art for the American version because the Japanese art is objectively better, even though this does look very much like Mark Hamill, and this looks a lot like the lady that modeled for Mara Jade. So that's cool. So without spoilers, this one's actually a bit easier to kind of give you the gist of what you'll be reading about. So basically we have a couple different things going on. We have basically Anakin, Tahiri, and Corran on an adventure. Starts with Luke and Mara on Coruscant, but then they have to leave because Borsk Vela is playing politics again. But we'll get to them in spoilers. Then we got Kip Durin, Jaina Solo, and Rogue Squadron doing stuff together. Then we've got Leia, Han, and Jason. And that's kind of what's going on for the group. So Leia, Han, and Jason are on a mission for Luke. Luke still isn't taking the fight to the Vong, but he wants to be able to help disenfranchised Jedi and other people, so he wants to make safe spaces for all of them. So right now, Han, Leia, and Jason are trying to find ways in order to make that applicable. Jaina is trying to find Kip because Luke said so, and because later on Kip says he has some information about something dangerous that the Yusung Vong have been orchestrating. Mara is also suffering with her pregnancy because she's pregnant, and the disease is slowly killing her. This mysterious Vong disease is killing her, but she wants to make sure the baby is born. Anakin and Tahiri are supposed to be going on a supply run with Corran, but it becomes much more, and then the relationship between Anakin and Tahiri also develops further more. So there's a lot going on in this book, and I enjoyed this book a lot. It's still one of my favorites of New Jedi Order, and it's nice and short. It's only 292 pages, but I like this one, and this doesn't mean I don't like it, but I like this one far, far less than the previous one. The other one just kept, the pace was just perfect, just kept going like that, and the writing was so on par, and the writing like that is for this too. But you would think, being only 292 pages with all these characters doing all these things, all these different things going on in the same book, that this book would breeze by. But it does somehow, even though being I think the same exact length, it feels longer than the last one, and I don't know what else to say about that. I had a really good time with it, but it does feel longer, and it's probably because there are sections of this book which are a bit more boring than others. Like, I have to say, the Han, Jason, and Leia part, there are some really, really good character moments that I'm glad we got here, especially to piss off some of you guys, but it's rather boring, in my opinion anyway. Maybe you won't find it boring. But my point is that some of this stuff really hit, and some of the stuff was just okay. So it ends up making this book, to me anyway, feeling a lot longer than it is. I still love it a lot, but if I had to choose between these two duologies by Greg Keyes, I vastly prefer the first one. So that's pretty much my non-spoiler things in this book. Overall, I still think that Greg Keyes was a great addition to the new Jedi Order series, and I do highly, highly, highly think that especially this duology is worth your time. But of course, all of the new Jedi Order is worth your time. You should be reading all of it. So, but it does get my stamp of approval. One of my higher ups in the EU. So now I'm gonna get to spoilers. If you don't want that, check out. So one of the big important points here is that Vergier comes back. She's been gone since the second book by Lucino. So it's been about 4 5, 6 it's about 3 books now. She's just been gone. Now, her character is meant to be mysterious, so we don't really know what she's up to. She's, of course, going back to the Vong to help them. But at the same time, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Now, mind you, I am the biggest, probably the biggest on YouTube currently anyway, defender of books that take place after New Jedi Order. That being said, I don't like the idea that Vergier was a Sith. I don't like it, and I don't agree with it, and I don't believe it. However, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Later on, Lumaya will say that she talked to Vergier. So at first I was like, well, there's no way that's even physically possible, but with the time span that she was gone, anything could have happened in them because we don't know anything about what she did. So theoretically, she could have. Do I believe that's what happened? No, but it's possible. One of the things we learned too is that Mara's pregnant with this child, that Vergier's tears have been helping Mara resist the illness that she's been having from the Vong. But her tears are killing her child in the womb. So she refuses to take the tears anymore, which means that, because the tears, they kill any virus or whatever, but it's gotten used to her body, so the fact that she's pregnant now, it takes it as just, oh, it's another bacteria or whatever. Anyway, so she's going to stop using it, which means that the sickness is coming back. And will she be able to give birth? You have to read the book to find out. I believe it's Luke. I forget though. Maybe Anakin. I don't remember who. But one of the characters in this book interacts with New Marar. Now, I only wrote that down because she is the sister to Elemarar, who will be important to the next book in the New Jedi Order series. So I just wanted to bring that up. She has recently become a Jedi. She is very quick to anger. This will be very important for the next book. And yeah, so I'll say there. Right, I wrote Yes, Han, Preach. Because Jason agreed to help them find a peaceful place for the Jedi to hide. Right, and Jason is crying about the fact that they are doing violent things sometimes and having to be a bit dirty, like taking, these smugglers were going to give weapons to the Yusong Vong. And so Han stops them and takes their stuff, and Jason just been complaining. And Han says, shut the fuck, that word basically, up. You can get off my ship if you're gonna keep this up. I am your father. Do as you're told. Shut your mouth. And I just, oh my god. Love you, Han. Yes. Tell Jason to shut up and get off his high horse. Literally doesn't become good till after the next book. Oh my god. What's next? there's a cute moment with Mara and Luke as they're trying to figure out on what to name their kid. And then Borsk says that they are going to be, they're going to be basically put on house arrest, and so they leave. If it isn't already, we're close. I marked it down when they were talking about it. I don't know if we're exactly at 2 years into the war against the Vong, but if it's not 2 years, it's 1 year and a couple months away, basically, from being 2 years of Vong invasion. So I just want to put that into perspective, that we're 8 books into this entire 19-book series, and we've now been in this war for almost about 2 years now, which is pretty crazy. Also, for the most part, sort of when it's story relevant, Keyes is the only one so far to make Jason not annoying, which I really appreciate. There's this rather humorous moment with Corran and Anakin, where Anakin sets these coordinates and Corran goes, "Please tell me you did not set it for young Duel." And Anakin says, "I didn't." And Corran gets so relieved. And then Anakin goes, "But it is really close to young Duel." It was a pretty. Most of the time, I find the humor in Star Wars humorous, but I don't find it I don't laugh out loud. But it got a good chuckle out of me, that one. Corran and Anakin also have a good discussion about the dark side. Of course, Anakin claps back with, "I was literally named after Anakin Skywalker to redeem the name. I have feared about turning to the dark side my entire childhood. I think I've thought about the dark side more than most people." It was just a really good scene. Also, their dynamic is surprisingly really good. I decided to make a couple points, most that don't actually mean anything, but just to piss people off. So, remember Anakin's vision of Tahiri being dark and evil, you know? Well, maybe his vision, he thought it was all about her being controlled by the Vong or whatever, but he just misinterpreted the vision because it was really about how she's going to act in Legacy of the Force. I don't know. I like that idea, though, just to upset all of you. So, I'm going to headcanon that in, just to upset you. Yeah, I know that's not the reason, but because the series didn't even exist yet, but I'm going to think that from now on, just to upset you. But here's a legitimate point. Han and Jason. So one thing that becomes abundantly clear if you read this book, the more you go through it. Anakin and Jaina are a lot more like Han. Jason, and I will grant this even for Young Jedi Knights, was more like Leia. Now in Young Jedi Knights, he's a bit funnier than Leia ever was. But he's a lot more sensitive, right? Sure, he's not a diplomat, but that's because that's kind of what Leia was grown up to be, right? That's what Bail kind of made her to be. Right? So he's not trying to fight for the oppressed and, being in the political aisle, but he cares about animals very deeply, right? So in that sense, he's a lot more like his mother. But then again, he doesn't have a very close relationship with his father because his father simply doesn't understand him and he doesn't understand his father. But then, double take. He doesn't really know either of his parents that well. If this book has made anything abundantly clear, they may have really good moments together, but they aren't very close. Not in the grand scheme of things, anyway. Because they were gone for most of his childhood. Now, I don't know about you, but for some reason that kind of just made an epiphany in my mind of, dang, that also further speaks to his dark descent. Just on that fact alone, the fact that he wasn't close with his parents. And to me, it's not out of character later on relationships would get sour, regardless of what he was doing, just because, I've growing up, and I, hardly ever see my family anymore because I'm always out. And they go from feeling like family to, roommates over time. It really depends on the family, right? But I could see that with Jason, and so I thought that was interesting because he clearly does not have the best relationship with either of them, regardless of this new philosophy he's trying to adhere to. So I thought that was quite interesting. From the events of the last book, the Jedi Savior thing for the shamed ones in the Vong castes are beginning to spread like wildfire, which is interesting. Nominor shows up again as a given. I have to praise him again because he's such a little. He's very much like Scar from, The Lion King. Like he's not gonna go out and all out fight with you. He's not gonna do it, especially not if you're a Jedi. But he'll slink away. He'll let others do his dirty work. He makes the plans. He doesn't have to fight you. He's thinking 10 steps ahead of you. And again, like Dala, he kind of keeps losing, but he always finds a way to bounce back, which I love about him. And I think he does this even better than Dala ever did, because it was a lot of kind of incompetence, but then she'd find her way back up. And this will happen again for her in the future. But here, it's not that he's stupid, it's just that the Jedi keep kind of comeuppancing him, which keeps making him look bad in front of the Vong, and he can't have that because it means his status will be lower, so he constantly finds a way to build himself back up, which I think is really cool about him. Kip's rant to Anakin was so good. Or not to Anakin, to Jaina. Because, he respects he respects Luke immensely. He respects Han. He says, I have a debt that I'll never be able to repay to either of them. But I do not believe what I'm doing is wrong. We have to take the fight to them. And Luke can talk about being scared all he wants about doing this stuff. But you know what? He did it when he fought the Empire. And maybe he wasn't the best Jedi yet either, but he didn't fall. And even when he did fall, he came back. Because he was a true Jedi. This isn't the Jedi of old. This isn't Luke fumbling through it. These are new Jedi Knights who do their own, who are different. This is the new Jedi Order. It has to be different. And I loved it because Kip is 99% of the time right. He's only wrong once, and we're going to get to that in this book. Jason and Leia have a really tender moment because Han kind of tells him, like, I'm having enough of you. If you're going to keep complaining, get off my ship. I don't care if you're my son. So Leia has a moment with him, and it's a very sweet and tender moment. Jason even starts tearing up. And I thought it was nice because for a very brief second, it was only one sentence. But the humor of Jason from Young Jedi Knights returned just in that one moment. Because he's pretty serious, but it was a one moment where he actually made a joke. So I appreciated that. Also, another thing to annoy and piss you off. So, people want to make comments about Legacy of the Force. I won't explain why for those who haven't read it. But they like to make comments about certain pedo stuff or whatever, which it isn't. This is Star Wars. But yet, I don't, except for like Meg reviews, I don't hear too many people complain about the fact that Kip is flirting with 16 or 17-year-old right now. I think 17. Do you get that? Like, he's like in his mid-30s. Probably pushing toward 40 now. No, Luke's in his 40s. So yeah, he's like in his early 30s or mid-30s. And he's flirting with someone not even of age yet. So be consistent. You gotta be revolted by this scene or this book, and then that stuff in Legacy of the Force. Otherwise, shut your mouth forever and always. Thank you. And then we have the sweetest moment of the entire book, where Anakin and Tahiri kiss. And it's a really iconic moment, and it really holds true for a lot of fans who believe that they're one of the best couples in all of the EU, if not Star Wars in general. But they are really cute. There's a lot of good moments with them. I also wanted to do another one just to piss certain people off. So near the end of this book, Luke has a vision of him holding his son in the future. and then his son being older and looking at like water or whatever, but Mara's nowhere to be found. Now, obviously, the original intention was that he was just fearing that Mara might die during childbirth, but maybe he misinterpreted the vision, and it was actually because in Legacy of the Forest stuff would go down. I like to think about that. Anyway, moving forward. The only time Kip has ever been wrong. Kip lies to Rogue Squadron, and Kip, the biggest sin, lies to Jaina about what he's doing. Now, I still think in the grand scheme it was worth it. I mean, I think, unless I'm misunderstanding, he didn't kill children. He made it so that the Vong have to either choose to save their children or make more warships. And so he's banking on them choosing their children, which will set them back. So I'm not inherently opposed to that, if I'm reading that correctly. If he just killed children, then yeah, that's a big L on his part. But the biggest problem is just that he didn't tell Jaina the truth. And her trust feels betrayed. And that was the one moment I was like, that was very dark side of you, Kip. You should have told her the truth. But other than that, Kip's the best. And by the end of this book, Ben Skywalker is born, and Mara is cured by a Deus Ex, because the Force said so. They make it a big deal for 8 books that she's sick, and then they just drop it. I mean, I don't really care. It's Star Wars. I don't take it that seriously as some people claim I do. But you hype it up as this big problem, and you don't even actually cure it with anything. You just hand wave it away. It's not a problem anymore. Honestly, I'm gonna give that as a big diss to this book and to this entire series. I'm sorry. I'm not letting that pass. I mean, I'll look past it because I love this series and it's whatever. I don't take Star Wars that seriously. But the problem is in recent years, I mean, this was also going on in the forums or whatever, but we don't care about forums. We care about what people are going to see nowadays, which is nobody's going to go and look back at like old forums unless they're super duper nerds, you know? No one's going to go back and look at old chats from back in the day unless they were actually there, you know? But, you know, the hate for series post after New Jedi Order is astounding by some people on internet. And, you know, one of the things I constantly hear is, well, they tell you, they don't show it. Well, you know, they just told me that Mara was cured and didn't explain it. Didn't even say, oh, the Force magically cured her. She just is fine now. That is just as much, if not a bigger sin, than saying, oh, hey, Jason trained for 6 years and now he's different. It's pretty bad. Now, you can just ignore it because you love the series, like I do, but it's a legitimate complaint to be like, oh, it would be one thing if it was like a one and done, like first book done, but the problem is that they hyped this up for 8 books to be like this big thing with Mara, that she's dying from this disease, they don't have a cure, so I imagine they would try to find a cure, but instead she is just, by the Force, magically cured by the very end. And I found that very frustrating, and very Deus Ex Machina. Now, at the same time, it's Star Wars, so I don't really care. But because I have to defend my favorite thing, if Legacy of the Force is a problem and Darkness is a problem for not showing, then you better give a big, big, big diss to this book for just hand-waving away her illness. And if you don't, then you're a hypocrite and stupid. Sorry. It is what it is. I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. But, yeah, so she's just cured by it now. And she gave birth to Ben Skywalker, who's one of my favorite characters. Not right now, he's just an infant, but later on he'll grow to become one of my favorites. So, I look forward to seeing his older self. But right now he's just a baby, and he was born, which is one candle's enough to light the darkness, and love can ignite the stars. This is the big hopeful moment at the end of this book, which is good to have with Ben being born, because the next book is going to be very, very dark. It is The Empire Strikes Back of the New Jedi Order, where all hope seems lost until hope rises up again. So, very, very good that we got to see the birth of Ben in this story. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time we actually get introduced to Overlord Shimra and Omni. which are two very important characters for down the line, but it was interesting to see them here. I forgot that that actually happened. I won't say too much more than that. My last note is on Borskvela. It's in the epilogue. I was reading it, and knowing how everything ends, I genuinely think that Borskvela, while a dick, is at his core, no matter how shady and shy, shady and sly he may be, that at his core there is his heart in the right place. He may be a dick to everyone around him, and he may not show that in the best light. But this is just my interpretation. But when he says congratulations to Luke on his new baby, I don't read sarcasm. I genuinely think he was happy for Luke. He even says, "Look, I have gotten it so you are no longer going to be arrested, but I also cannot sanction you. I know what you're doing is right. I've been playing the politics game, trying to stay one up ahead. I have plausible deniability, but I wish you the best." I do genuinely think that Borsk means that, and I wouldn't think that if not for the next book, which we'll get to. But I think he's genuine here, and I just wanted to comment on that. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Sharing episode a ton. And we have a couple other things. We have Emissaries of the Void by Greg Keyes to review, and a fanfiction by Hand of Thrawn 45. But then after that, we move on to Book 9 of the New Jedi Order series by Troy Denning, of all people, this controversial man, star by star. So hope you all join me for that review next time. And remember, may the Force be with you.